Northern Lights, a company built on traditional values. We provide rugged, dependable power generation systems for marine and industrial markets. Since our beginnings on the Alaskan frontier over 40 years ago, Northern Lights has built high-quality, dependable generator systems that are easy to operate and maintain. Based in Seattle, Washington, with factory branches in Alaska, Massachusetts, Florida, and Europe, Northern Lights is committed to providing our customers with superior products and worldwide support. Thank you for choosing Northern Lights. You will be rewarded with many years of dependable service. This video will provide valuable information and help familiarize you with major components, operation, maintenance, and troubleshooting of your Northern Lights generator set. The generator set should be presently in place and installed per our recommendations and ready for use. Key to all product references are the model designation and serial number. These and other important information can be found on the data plate, which is affixed to the service side of the generator housing. Here we can see this generator has a model designation M843NK 12 kilowatt, and the serial number is 8432-25578C. When we refer to the service side of the generator set, we are describing a very helpful and convenient design feature that is built into every Northern Lights generator set. As we call out the main components of the system, you will see that we have located all the routine maintenance points on one side of the unit, the service side. The oil drain tube, the oil filter, the oil fill cap, the dipstick, the seawater pump, the fuel filter, the air filter, the generator J-box, the DC control circuit breaker, and the AC voltage regulator circuit breaker. Please refer to your owner's manual for the location of all other components. Safety is very important when you are working on or around your Northern Lights generator set. Please read and follow all of the safety guidelines that are outlined in the owner's manual before performing any maintenance routines. The following items should be checked daily before you start your Northern Lights generator set. Check the oil level of the engine by way of the oil dipstick. The correct oil level will be indicated by the oil mark falling on the cross-hatched area of the dipstick. Adjust the oil level in the engine if the mark is above or below this area. Always check the engine coolant level on a cold engine. The coolant should be within 1 inch of the radiator cap lower seal surface area. Locate your fuel water separator filter and check for any signs of water contamination in the see-through bowl. Drain off the water if needed. Make sure fuel is turned on. The raw water intake should be in the open position. Inspect the base pan below the unit for any signs of fluid, which may indicate a possible leak. Use a screwdriver to check all of the unit's hose clamps for tightness. Inspect the drive belt for correct tension and wear. The drive belt should give no more than ½ an inch. Check for loose or chafing wires. With these preliminary checks having been done, you can now begin the start procedure. Turn the battery switch to the on position. Make sure that the load circuit breaker is open or load selector switch is turned off. Hold the preheat switch in for 10 to 15 seconds. Preheating is required only on a cold engine, but the preheat switch must always be momentarily pushed to activate the fuel solenoid. While continuing to hold the preheat switch, push the starter switch to crank over the engine until it starts. Continue to hold the preheat switch until oil pressure has developed. Generally, this will take about 10 additional seconds. Release the preheat switch. You can now close the main circuit breaker or generator load selector switch. Look at your AC voltmeter. For a 120 volt system, the voltage reading should be in the range of 115 to 125 volts AC. Your frequency meter should indicate a 59 to 62 Hz reading for a 60 Hz system. For a 50 Hz system, your readings will be in the range of 49 to 52 Hz. Of course, these readings will depend on the amount of load being applied to the unit. Check your amp meter and familiarize yourself with the load levels of your system. Under normal operating conditions, a continuous load should not exceed 75% of the generator's output. This does not account for intermittent high loads and/or surges that may occur. Once you have familiarized yourself with the typical gauge readings of your system, you may choose to mark your gauges with high visibility tape for easy reference at a glance. Take time to listen to your engine. Does it sound like it's running smoothly? Or are there any abnormal or mechanical noises? Look at the exhaust. Is it clear of most smoke? Is there a good flow of water? Once again, inspect the unit and base pan for any leaks. There are several steps to follow when you are ready to shut down your Northern Lights generator set. First, remove the load being applied to the unit by operating the main circuit breaker or utilizing the load selector switch. Allow the unit to run for a few minutes without load to stabilize and cool down. Observe the engine temperature and engine oil pressure gauges to see that they are in the normal range. You can now shut down the unit. Momentarily push the shutdown switch. The unit will stop. You do not need to hold the switch continuously in order to stop the unit. Now that you know how to start, operate, and shut down your Northern Lights generator set, we can begin to cover the important aspects of routine maintenance. Refer to your owner's manual for more detailed information about your specific model, as well as associated maintenance and scheduled service intervals. Changing the oil. Scheduled oil changes are important to the life of your generator set. Follow the oil change intervals outlined in your owner's manual and always use the recommended oil quality. Change the oil when the engine is warm. Place oil absorbent pads around the drain areas. Use caution when working on a warm engine, as hot oil can cause burns. Wear protective clothing. Begin by draining the oil. Remove the oil filter, making sure that the old gasket comes off completely. Place the filter in a container after removing it from the engine. Please dispose of the drained oil and oil filter at an approved site. Install a new filter. Always use genuine Northern Lights replacement filters, and remember to wet the gasket with a coating of oil. Do not over-tighten the new filter. After the oil is completely drained, close the drain fitting. Fill the engine with oil. Fill the engine so that the oil level on the dipstick is at the high side of the cross-hatched area. Start and run the engine to check for leakage around the filter and drain fitting. Shut the unit down and recheck the oil level. Add oil as required to achieve the correct level. Bleeding the fuel system. Another important maintenance routine is changing the fuel filter and bleeding the fuel system of trapped air. While all Northern Lights fuel systems are self-bleeding, the following manual bleeding procedure can be performed to assure an air-free fuel system upon restart. Begin by shutting the fuel supply valve off. This will be located at or near the fuel tank. Place oil absorbent pads under the fuel filter and have a container handy to place the filter into. Unscrew the old filter and drain it into the container. Inspect the fuel that has been drained for contaminants, such as water and/or dirt. Wet the gasket on the new Northern Lights replacement filter with fuel and screw it onto the engine until the gasket makes contact. Turn once more to tighten. Note that the on-engine fuel filter element is a 10-micron element. Turn the fuel shutoff valve back on. Place a small piece of absorbent pad around the bleed screw to soak up spillage. Loosen the bleed screw. The system is bled using the priming lever of the fuel lift pump. Pump the priming lever until all signs of error are removed. Initially, you will get fuel out of the bleed screw because there is a small amount of fuel in the line between the filter and the bleed screw. Continue pumping until all air escapes and fuel once again comes out. Retighten the bleed screw. Be careful not to over-tighten, you may break it. Please dispose of the fuel and filter properly. Start and run the engine. Check the filter for leakage. If the engine doesn't start, do not continue to crank the engine or you may flood the exhaust with water. If this happens, the muffler must be drained. Repeat the bleeding process and try to start the engine again. Servicing the seawater pump. The seawater pump, often called the raw water pump, is an important part of the cooling system and requires maintenance. Note that the freshwater system refers to the closed system accessible through the radiator cap. This system cools through a heat exchanger and uses antifreeze coolant as an additive. To replace the impeller, turn off the seacock located at or near the strainer. Remove the impeller cover plate and then pry out the impeller with 2 screwdrivers or water pump pliers, being very careful not to scratch the pump housing. Inspect the pump cover plate and the inside of the pump housing for excess wear on the cam and for impeller pieces. Apply dish soap to the new impeller to ease installation and install impeller. Replace the cover O-ring with a new one and install cover. Turn on the seacock. Start and run the engine to check for leaks. Inspect the exhaust outlet to make sure water is flowing out. Adjusting the valves. Adjusting the valves can be a little intimidating, but with care and the right tools, it can be done by most vessel owners. We recommend that you read the owner's manual regarding this procedure. On most engines, the valves should be adjusted on a cold engine. Be sure to reference your manual to determine if your engine needs to be hot or cold when performing this procedure. Remove the valve cover. Turn the engine in the direction of rotation by using the front crankshaft nut. Continue turning the engine over by hand until the intake valve starts to open and the exhaust valve starts to close on the cylinder you intend to adjust, and then rotate the crankshaft 1 full turn. Adjust both valves on the cylinder to the required clearance. Repeat this step for all cylinders. Note that the valves on the Northern Lights M984 generator set are adjusted in a different manner. Refer to your owner's manual for the correct procedure when adjusting the valves on this engine model. Reinstall the valve cover. Start and run the engine. Listen for a smooth valve train sound with no loud chattering. Keeping your Northern Lights generator set clean is very important. It keeps the engine room looking clean and it helps you to detect problems easier. Place oil absorbent pads in the drip pan and around the unit to catch any dirt or oil. Mix a solution of a good degreaser soap and water in a spray bottle. Using an inexpensive paintbrush, spray and brush the dirty areas of the engine and then rinse with small amounts of fresh water. Start from the bottom and work up, as grease and grime are more difficult to remove from pre-soaked paint. Exercise caution not to get water into the starter, the generator J-box, the generator fan area, or the DC alternator, as water can damage sensitive electronics and cause electrical shock from high voltage. Either blow dry with low air pressure or wipe dry the entire unit. Remove the absorbent pads and wipe clean the drip pan. Start and run the unit at temperature to check the system. Knowing how to troubleshoot the operation of your Northern Lights generator set will save you time and expense should you experience operational difficulties. The following will cover common troubleshooting practices for your generator set. What to do if the generator set shuts down on its own. While the unit is shut down, check the oil level on the dipstick, and then carefully check the coolant level in the expansion tank. After this, carefully touch the exhaust elbow or muffler to see if either is hot to the touch. The primary reasons for automatic shutdown are high engine temperature, low oil pressure, or high exhaust elbow temperature. The reasons break down as follows. High engine temperature can be caused by a loss of coolant in the engine, the loss of raw water flow through the seawater pump, a closed seacock, a plugged air filter, a plugged exhaust elbow, a stuck or damaged thermostat, or a broken drive belt. Low oil pressure can be caused by a loss of lube oil and oil filter needing to be changed, or even contaminated lube oil. If contaminated lube oil is suspected, contact your servicing dealer. High exhaust temperature is normally caused by a loss of water flow from the seawater or raw water pump. Some other causes of shutdowns can be loss of fuel or problems within the DC control circuit. Note that the Northern Lights generator sets require 12 or 24 volts DC to run, so if you should lose battery voltage from a tripped DC circuit breaker, broken wires, relays, or a dead battery, the generator set will stop. Common reasons for the engine not starting because it won't crank over are a tripped DC circuit breaker located on the generator junction box, a discharged battery, a bad connection of the wire harness to the control panel, a problem with the control relay, or a problem with the starter itself. Problems of hard starting with the engine turning over can be caused by low battery voltage, incorrect use of the bypass preheat switch, restricted fuel supply, air in the fuel line, failure to arm the fuel system by activating the solenoid, or a failed preheater circuit. Note that excessive cranking can cause the exhaust to fill with water, back up and run directly into the engine. Drain the muffler if necessary to prevent this. If your generator set doesn't seem to carry load well, lacks power, or has excessive smoke, the causes can be a plugged air filter, valves out of adjustment, a restricted fuel system, an overheating engine, an overloaded engine, dirty or faulty fuel injectors, or a plugged exhaust elbow. Other abnormal engine problems can be a fluctuating oil pressure gauge, low engine oil level, a bad sender, wiring, or a plugged oil filter. High or low engine temperature can be caused by a faulty thermostat, low coolant level, a faulty gauge, sender, or wiring, or a damaged or worn seawater pump impeller. If the engine knocks, this could be a plugged air filter, restricted exhaust system, or air in the fuel system. If the DC voltmeter reads too high or too low, it could be the result of a faulty gauge, wiring, dead battery, inoperative alternator, or a bad connection of the wire harness plugs. Common generator end problems include no AC output, which can be caused by an open field circuit breaker on the generator junction box, an open mainline circuit breaker, a faulty generator selector switch, the engine speed running too slow because of restricted fuel, a blocked air system, or a broken wire in the generator junction box. Flickering lights can be caused by a faulty setting on the AC voltage regulator, an intermittent electrical short somewhere in the vessel, the engine speed running too slow, or load switching off and on. These troubleshooting hints are things that you can check for yourself. In the event that problems arise beyond the scope of those presented here, we recommend that you contact your nearest Northern Lights authorized servicing dealer for help. A complete worldwide dealer listing and plenty of other good information can be found at our website, www.northern-lights.com. We would like to remind you that it is smart seamanship to keep a good set of spares on board, such as filters, pump impellers, gaskets, and other spares you may need. Your Northern Lights dealer will be happy to help you get stocked up on the right spares for your generator set model and usage. Once again, thank you for choosing Northern Lights. We truly do appreciate your business. From all of us at Northern Lights Generator Sets and Lugger Marine Engines, good luck and great boating.